Subduction. 1. After a little while we will see him, imperative to see him as he is, or else remain bestial, demonic. 2. Art of arts and science of sciences, earmarked for a course few can understand, could hardly expect you to recognize that ancient light, feel the glow of being. You've things on your mind, other fish to fry, and cannot see those things for what they are, which amounts to a psychic entrapment, the mental slavery of Marley's ghost. None but ourselves can free our minds, however, is not quite right. Properly speaking, we are freed by the grace of God, not as the result of our own efforts. 3. Decidedly ruddy for one so pale, even in daylight you used to glitter, an orb radiant as the noose itself, in a sky that seemed impossibly blue. Now the source of that light has expired, and what was dependent has matured, supporting its own series of offspring. Therefore we call on the name of the Lord, inward men who have completed their task, deification of humanity. Our difficult years have already passed, all that learning how to discriminate between different kinds of influence, the spirit of God or that of the world, and destroying the works of the devil. 4. Grannies gaggle on West Midlands transport, escapees of a thundery blue rinse. The sky is darkening in segments, blocks of prayer fragment, over canals stream, also ruins of the bricklayer's arms. Some kind of latter-day singer of psalms are you, a witness to God's creation, heir to his eternal power, Adam's sense of primordial presence, no less. 5. Out of the darkness, fire without form, those who sit in darkness see a great light, the inner light which has no eventide, paradise, our loss of the noose undimmed. What turned us into intellectuals, incapable of perceiving the Lord? 6. Release me from the burden of my thoughts, and take me to the land of Israel. I have served my sentence under the yoke of alien beings. Slavery seemed like so much milk and honey once we were out in the desert, Moses lording it over us, nothing but manna to eat. Slowly we began to understand. We gave offerings of blood to the Lord, but what was given back we could ill afford. 7. Something of a void, this introspection. You think I'm entrenched in a bog-standard, rhymeless desert of 10-syllable lines. You haven't grasped what I aspire to, an aerial, aboriginal view, that I look down on patterns in the sand, survey, alongside birds and rooftop grass, a film of life crawling across the earth, mysteries of selves that have been quarried, see them there, glistening on their peaks, how they attend infallibly on themselves, their objects, curiously, themselves. 8. The God-centered state looks like nothingness from here, the personality unstripped of its meaningless accumulations, a latent individuality, or the image, later likeness of one, mediated by wordless perceptions, time spent with trees, his work cut out for you, recompense for drudgery of supply. It boils down to moments, a stolen few, torn from an evil determinism, moments of the Lord's indwelling, embers of noetic composition perhaps, something of a void, much harder than rhyme, it goes without saying. Heading out of the zones of finite thought, a poetry of uncreated language. I begin to see the promised land, ascetics thin on the ground. A bush fire clears the way of mental images, but goes to waste. Idols remultiply where sand meets sky. Fixation on them can only resume. 9. The narratives of stars, insensible to the naked eye, go on and on, though eclipsed by the light of the sun. Outcomes of separation, leaving them behind. In this case, out of sight is out of mind, the result of impartial mentation. Esoteric, the journey of the soul. Nothing you wouldn't find in the Bible, a chink of light through a wall of granite. At least one is always hoping for that, for the abusive or dysfunctional to all of a sudden see the error of their ways. It comes down to distancing oneself from one's sin, the haze of wanting. 10. Thought The Exorcist had put paid to Stan and his wretched films, at least the one which recurred in your dreams, caught the tedium of hell, the unwillingness of it all. 11. Tied to spokes on a wheel of compulsion, urged to worship a female deity, subsumed in part by the Panagea, rocked in the cradle of the ancient world, mixed up with misguided ascetics who fuse with sex into lovers of pain, drawing in your mind again and again the shape of a woman with bat-like wings, might outrage the patience of a stylite. To pit prayer against the formation of such images usually ends in failure. Perhaps you gain some relief from worn-out, addictive fantasizing, that afforded by a kind of mouldy and moth-eaten comfort blanket. But what's passing through your mind are things not your own. Enforce from them a separation, forms of idolatry that eat up the soul, things which might form the meat of a stanza, hiding the darkness of eternity, fragments of a glittering mosaic. 12. Those ushered into monasticism know the stream of images of women gushing from an inexhaustible source. They turn their back on the creature's comforts, distance themselves from exquisite pleasures. The fathers of ascetical science knew how to confront man's instinctive needs, find the point between spirit and the beast. One begins to see the creature inside, pacing about in its hungry desert, the instinct-born habits it subsists on, separate its wants from one's conscious will. It wants, I do not want. It takes an age for the passions to ebb away, or else to stand aside from them, not get involved, even in the midst of our own bodies. 13. Traces of conscious thought, of known things, in a mind on the brink of nothing at all. It would scale threads into shadow, aware of being watched, and know the noose of Christ. Why else was it brought into existence? To watch the trembling of roadside grass? 14. Who made the world, coming into the world, where men show off their stumps on newspapers baking. Their eyes swim in darkness, remind you of innocence, how early autumn felt before the onslaught of the demons, ambushed on the way to Jerusalem, sweating it out in Uranopoli. We're going to keep you here, they whispered, down here with us. You saw a flash of light across the ocean, battened down the hatch. By then, what lived in your head should have been reflecting surface. Instead, instinctive forces maintained their early channels of gratification. Setting them against the light of holy tradition puts them into perspective, leaving a space for you to contemplate real identity, incarnation of spirit in the world. Not that they give up the ghost, those subterranean forms, but you have become a witness to them. Their activity becomes separate, termite mounds in your internal desert, a kind of inner Cappadocia.